Okay, welcome back. So, prevention and causes. One of my favorite stories as I talk about mold, I did a home, and this one was a home that was originally built, I'm going to say about 1945, and it was about 1600 square feet, fairly common rambler, the kind of homes that they built back then, fairly standard. And then in about 1970 or so, they decided that they wanted a few more square feet. So they added on the back side of the house, they added basically just a big square family room. And they didn't really know what to do about how to slope the roof to make it go with the rest of the house, so they just made it a flat roof. And as I got in there to do my home inspection, I noticed that the entire back side of the house was just in the final remediation stages for mold. They were doing a remediation there. The carpet was gone, the pad was gone, actually the sheetrock was gone, and they had this big fan in there that was supposed to finish drying the place out. I thought, okay, well, they asked me to do an inspection on a place that just got remediated. That's interesting, but I guess, they did what they had to do. And so I went ahead, and one of the last things I did was actually get up on the roof that day. Usually I'll do the roof first, but in this case, maybe it was morning and I didn't want to get on the frosty roof or whatever. I got on it last. And then I noticed that this addition had a flat roof on it, only it wasn't flat. This was actually a bowl-shaped roof, and we had at least 100 gallons of water in this bowl-shaped roof, and beneath that we had the mold remediation happening. And it just kind of made me want to shake my head, because these people had spent who knows how many thousands of dollars, maybe over $10,000, to do this remediation, and they hadn't fixed anything at all. You know that if you've got that much water on a flat roof and it's already caused a mold problem, it's going to happen again. So this kind of feeds my thing about eliminate the reason why the problem is there before you actually address the problem itself. This applies not only to molds, but to critters and that sort of thing. Obviously, if we were talking about meth and you had a meth home, you'd want to eliminate the guy who is the meth head before you wanted to do the remediation. Same sort of thing applies to mold. You've got to eliminate the reason why the mold happened, or all you've really done is put a whole bunch of your money in somebody else's pocket. In the prevention category, you want to take a long, hard look. Let's say that the north wall is moldy. This actually happened in a home that I inspected recently, and in this case, the north wall was the garage, and we saw that this wall was moldy. Happened to be underneath the window, and I took the buyer outside. I like to have them with me as I do the inspection. And the roof above there was no valleys, there was no chimney up there, the roof was in good shape, and I actually even knew that it wasn't critters. Then the question becomes, of course, why do we have this mold history there? And what we were able to determine is that the sprinklers were hitting the window. The water was washing down the window, getting into the window frame, and then into the wall because it wasn't draining out as it should have. Now, you don't want to rely on the window to capture and drain all that water properly. You want to not have the problem in the first place. So in this case, the buyer got a much better deal from the seller because now we've got a moldy house, and all that really had to happen was that they needed to not spray the house with the sprinklers. In this case, instead of having a full 360 circle sprinkler head, we needed to have a half circle head. The fix would have cost about $2. And instead of doing that, now we've got a mold problem. We've got the buyer wanted to dig in, and justifiably so. He wanted to dig into the wall, find out, get rid of the sheetrock, find out how much mold and rotten termites there may have been on that north wall underneath the window, remediate that, of course, using the proper protective equipment. It's one of those, and I often talk about the $10 fix versus the $10,000. In this case, the $10 fix was the cost of a sprinkler head, while the $10,000 fix In this case, it wasn't quite that expensive, but it could easily have been thousands to do this little remediation on that north side of the garage wall. So you want to watch the sprinklers. You want to watch the wet carpet. I mentioned wet, bare feet. Maybe there's kids, maybe they're bringing snow in. Sometimes I see where you'll have wet carpet from a foundation leak. In one of the homes that comes to mind, and this is one I did early in my career, back in the mid-90s, you actually had mushrooms growing, and it was a fourplex apartment building. And in the lower left side, you actually had mushrooms growing in the carpet. There was that much water for that long, and these mushrooms were, I'm going to say, about 1.5 inches tall. There was enough moisture and enough grossness, soil, if you will, in this carpet to keep these mushrooms growing. It was kind of gross. And of course, the renters were complaining about sinus issues. They had who knows how many millions of mold spores in there, but that's what they had going. And the reason for that was a poor drainage slope that actually forced water towards the foundation. The foundation was cracked, as they all are, and then water comes in and it starts growing these mushrooms. So that needs to be addressed too. Again, in this case, the $10 fix would have been pretty much $0, and it would have been to have dug out the soil away from the foundation, put it up against the foundation, and force surface water to drain away from the structure. Very easy stuff, but in so many cases it doesn't actually happen. Another way to do prevention rather than remediation is to take a look at your roof. There can be ice dams. Now, actually, in this room here, I'm currently renting this home in preparation of building my own. And in what is now my office slash studio slash man cave, we actually have a mold issue. And I found that out because I have one little corner, again, this is the north corner, where spiders keep greeting me. And being the inspector that I am, I know that spiders often reflect moisture because moisture creates bugs and bugs create spiders. And so I know that where you have spiders or spider webs, you can have those sorts of problems. So I went looking for the water source, and I've realized that it is an ice dam that I predicted when I moved into the house. I mentioned that to the landlord and they kind of grunted, but yeah, we've got water inside the walls. So you want to take a look at those sorts of things when you have molds, is to see if you're getting the water from the roof. I mentioned the plumbing, I mentioned the drainage. Sometimes you can have water that is forced or allowed directly into the window wells, and when that happens, you've got water entering the house.